Wes Anderson is back with Asteroid City, and man, does he really Wes Anderson it up. It's beautiful as it always is, sneakily emotional as it always is, and all the things that he does best. I should preface this by saying that I actually am a huge Wes Anderson fan, and I know that his style isn't for everyone, but I'm personally really enjoy the way that he makes his movies. So I do have a bit of a personal bias here. The quirkiness is at an all-time high here, and we'll get into all that and more. But up first, who should see this movie? If you know who Wes Anderson is, whether it be from his other films or from one of those TikTok videos, then you'll know his style is distinct. If you're a fan of outliers, movies that aren't your typical movie, then this will be a feast for you. It's also got the ensemble vibe to it, as is the case with most Wes Anderson films. So for those that like a big cast of recognizable faces, you'll find this enjoyable. On to the spoiler-free review. Let's start with the writing. I feel that the writing is good, not great. I think this, like most of his other films, takes some time to ramp up into the real meat of the story. It feels necessary in movies like The Royal Tenenbaums, but here it almost starts to drag its feet, but not quite. Once it does get started, it goes and is paced very well. It all ramped up very smoothly to the climax, and everything felt earned. A typical criticism of Wes Anderson is that all his characters are the same, and while I can sort of understand where that's coming from, it's mostly untrue. The way the dialogue is delivered can give the sense that everyone is exactly the same, but the particular content of what everyone is saying gives a good amount of insight into each individual character. It makes these side characters feel perfectly supplemental to the overarching themes of the movie, which is one of the main purposes of a side character. That being said, the dialogue can be delivered just a tad bit too fast, and the nature of the dialogue means that you end up missing out on important information, or at least thinking you might have, simply because you weren't exactly sure what they said. There's a specific vibe in the sound design of this, and really all Wes Anderson films, that feels almost like ASMR. The tiniest of sounds seem amplified, but it almost never feels out of place or overbearing. The score also caught me off guard. There are moments where the music is so perfect in the scene that it heightens the emotions times 10. There's nothing like feeling the perfect swell of the score as the lines are delivered until it reaches the climax. The hardest part to talk about for me is the cinematography. Wes Anderson has a very specific style that is almost instantly recognizable, and he is very committed to it here, for better or for worse. Don't get me wrong, I love the pastel color palette and the horizontal camera movements and the 90-degree panning, but even I have to admit that at times it felt unnecessary. I tend to agree with Roger Deakins, legendary cinematographer, that ostentatious shots can actually be detrimental to the movie because attention is being drawn to how the movie is shot rather than the movie itself. Whenever I watch a Wes Anderson movie, it always feels like I'm reading a storybook or watching a stage play, but I shouldn't always be thinking about it with every single shot. Of course, I don't go into his movies expecting anything less, but for the average viewer, I can see it getting tiresome at some points. Another thing I want to mention is the set design. It's just so good. I love the way it all looks, and I love how distinct each area feels from each other. It's all just so good to me. Performances are hard to gauge in Wes Anderson movies for obvious reasons, but Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman do stand out to me. They hit all their emotional beats, and the subtlety of these performances and their particular characters is done very well. All right, spoiler territory incoming. So if you haven't seen it yet, then get out of here. But if not, then stick around. Let's get into it. In the first half of the review, I was intentionally as vague as possible because, for me at least, it was impossible to tell from the promotional material that this was going to be a movie within a stage play within a movie. It was an unexpected angle that, after the second scene where we see the actor for Augie meet up with the playwright, I wasn't sure would work for me or not, but by the ending, I was unequivocally sure that it did. The little black and white intermissions of the world outside of Asteroid City were perfect additions. The part I love most about watching a Wes Anderson movie is after seeing it the first time and trying to decipher all of its quirkiness and trying to find out the deeper subject matter that the movie is actually conveying. To me, it seems to be related to grief, obviously, and even a bit of existentialism. Augie's actor goes the whole play, and even before the play, in the scene I mentioned before, not knowing what the play is actually about. The Dare Me kid admits that he asks people to dare him because he's afraid that otherwise no one will notice his existence in the universe. Augie himself just lost his wife not too long ago, and when he has this conversation with his kids, he goes on a whole spiel about where their mother went relative to each of their own beliefs. So when an alien shows up in Asteroid City, it basically tells everyone that they aren't alone in the universe, and it forces them to ponder their relevance in the grand scheme of things. Woodrow even has a breakdown about it to his father and grandfather, wondering what the meaning of anything is now that they know they're not alone. All this to say that underneath the pastel colors and fun characters, the movie's asking us to think about some really deep philosophical concepts. I felt a real connection to these characters as they tried to understand their place in the world. When Augie's actor meets his character's wife, who got written out of the play, which is confusing, I know, but the conversation that they had me on the edge of my seat, fully leaned forward, hanging on to every word. All in all, this is Wes Anderson at his most Wes Anderson, which may repel some people and may draw in others. That's going to be it for my review. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe so the algorithm will love me more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.